one too from tonight, Gary, if you want.
Good evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and I'm joined as always with my good buddy Jimmy the Don.
What's going
Down
on?
below, we got Kenny Caps, and our special guest. There we go, Kevin Bixby, the art department for Wink Inc. and a legend in his own right.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. So before we get going, why don't you give your quick introduction of yourself and what you do to our audience?
So I'm Kevin Bixby with Big Stone Productions. I'm a comic book artist. Put a lot of stuff on Instagram, and I currently have a show scheduled through Pop Shop Live, and that's pretty much it. I've been drawing I've been drawing since I was a little kid, but went to school for graphic design and transitioned that into drawing comic books when I was in college and selling mini comics at different band shows. And once I graduated, actually started to do the Wizard World circuit. So traveled around the country doing some different shows and thought that I was going to be the next big, Marvel, DC, indie artist. And there came a very distinct time when my then girlfriend wanted to get married. And so I kind of put the art on the background until probably the last 10 years and started picking it up again and just trying to get my stuff out there. So trying to, make the world a pretty place.
And you do a lot of posting of your art on Instagram with sale prices on it as well.
I do.
And commission work?
Yeah. So I do a lot of blank covers.
Can I have some blank covers?
I have a whole stack, probably 4 or 5 inches thick.
What is that comic, Daddy?
It is Marvel Comics 1000. And
How can I not
if you
have one?
follow me on Instagram, my son joins in a lot, and my son is a little artist as well.
I'm showing someone my best artwork. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do blank comic cover commissions. Usually those are $50 a piece. But I'm always willing to work with people because I know sometimes that gets expensive. And just as a fan of comics and art in general, I would much rather a lot of the stuff that you see on Instagram, I end up giving away. Not because I don't value the artwork, but because I want people to have the art. I'm a fan of comics. I've been that guy that's walked the floor and seen George Perez and seen his portfolio with prices that are astronomical and out of reach. And I don't ever want someone to feel like that. One of the things that I do, COVID's kind of messed everything up, but one of the things that I do with my local comic shop is I go in and sit for free comic book day and do free sketches. So I'll be there from the time they open up about 9:30, 10 o'clock until 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I'll do probably 20 to 30 drawings in a day. So it's a lot of quick stuff, but and just the joy, especially once a kid comes back 2-3 years in a row and he knows that I'm going to be there, and just the look of joy on his face to get a Spider-Man or Deadpool or Batman or whatever, it's pretty fantastic. So
You said that you thought you were going to be like the next, big DC Marvel indie artist. Did you ever actually get close? I mean, did you, as far as back during that time?
So I think the closest I got was I don't know if you remember, obviously Wizard Magazine, but they had a little offshoot called Wizard Edge, and it covered a lot of um, independent artists. One of my favorite artists was actually in the first issue, Jim Mahfood, who did the Clerks comic book, and he's done a few short runs on Spider-Man and
Can I show them my card?
Generation X.
Can I show them mine? Picture? That one's-
The Clerks comic book, is that the one with Jay and Silent Bob, the picture of them on the front?
Which
Because I
one?
have that.
The Wizard Edge?
Huh?
The Wizard Edge or the Clerks comic?
The Clerks.
That one has Dante and Randall on the front of it.
Okay, it's not the one I have.
So, but anyway, so I was doing a convention actually in Chicago because at that point it was one of the bigger conventions in the Midwest. And a representative from Wizard Edge came and picked up a bunch of artwork and picked up some comics, which now I look back on it because this was about 20 years ago. I look back on it and cringe because the artwork in the comics at that point was, to me, it was not as refined. It was a lot more loose. So they picked it up and they took all my information, and I thought for sure I was going to be in the next issue, and nothing really ever came of it. I did do one of the submissions or one of the portfolio reviews, where you sit down with an artist and somebody, and I don't even remember the guy's name, but he looked at me and he just said, "You're not a comic book artist, you're a cartoonist, and you're never going to draw comic books. So I would just, give up on this now."
Wow,
you sound just like my mom.
Advice.
Yeah. So, which is funny because I'm friends with Art Baltazar, who draws drew Tiny Titans for DC, Itty Bitty Hellboy. He does his own comic action, Oh Yeah Comics, and he said the same thing. He put out his own comic before he got really noticed with Patrick the Wolf Boy, if anybody knows that one. But he said the same thing. Somebody looked at his stuff and they said, "You're a cartoonist. You're never going to make it in this industry." And, he's been doing it now for 30 years. So.
And you've seen some of the art that's got into comics that just doesn't have any right to be there. How come those people didn't get the same? And maybe they didn't. They just kept persevering. But
yeah,
there's been some rough art out there.
I look at it, and there was a Insta or a YouTube video that I saw that was talking about like Rob Liefeld's, famous Captain America picture where it's so out of proportion and it looks ridiculous. But
the chest.
It's such an iconic picture at this point that nobody else could have done that. Nobody else could have.
The shield is so bad on it too.
Yeah. Oh, that was, and it's funny because I like a lot of what Rob Liefeld does, but at the same time, there's a lot of cringy artwork that he puts out that I just look at, and I know that he was a self-taught artist.
Especially the sketchy faces with all the extra lines.
Yeah. Everybody looks about 10 years older than they need to be.
But I do have a question about your art. So one of the great things about your art, like any good artist, right, is it's instantly identifiable with you. When you see it, it's a Kevin Bixby piece because you have your own style. Now, is that how you always drew, or did you work on developing a style that was uniquely your own?
No, I had to really work at it. Like I said, I've been under the Big Stone Productions moniker. I've been doing this for 22 years now. And actually, I have one of my very first mini comics up. And you can kind of see that there are some elements that are similar, but I really had to push myself and work at it and just draw and draw and draw. In fact, just even the growth that I've had over the past year, I've when I talk to people now that we're starting to get together again and do different events, I talk to people and I say COVID was really beneficial for me in that regard, because I would be sitting with my family watching TV. One of my friends would start a live stream on YouTube or on Instagram, and I'd be laying on the couch and I would watch it. And, finally I would just say, what am I doing? I got to get up. I'm going to go downstairs and I'll, draw. And I would, pretty much after I would put my son to bed, I would come down into my studio and I'd be down here until 1-2 o'clock in the morning, doing FaceTime with friends, doing, live streams with friends, and just constantly working. So it just, even over the past year, it's really progressed, and there's a more of a style, like you said, something that's really identifiable that I've come to, really get comfortable with.
When you say growth, like what exactly does that mean as an artist? Does that mean your style was just more refined, like you found, like kind of expand on that a little bit, what that really means?
Sure. So with that, I'll put this picture up because about a year ago I drew a very similar Robin, and I went back after seeing it pop up, I think on one of my Instagram or Facebook memories. I looked at the picture and I just thought, geez, this is rough. My lines have gotten tighter, more confident, if that makes sense. Just even in playing with backgrounds, being able to come up with even when it's not like a defined background, coming up with something that's that is more expressive. So I'll show you a good difference. So I did this Supergirl. I actually am holding on to this for someone because they asked me to do it during a free comic book day. I did this Supergirl for someone back in 2019. And at the time I just felt, geez, I am not really good with drawing women. I have a real difficult time with it. And this was done like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Nice.
And then same thing with, I'll show Wanda.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, just being able to get proportions down, that's one thing in my comics that my comics were predominantly male because I just didn't feel comfortable drawing females. And so over the past year, I've really worked hard to get those proportions down, to get to just work everything out so it fit together nicely. I didn't have women that looked like men with square jaws, or even in the case of like the Supergirl where she has like no chin there.
Can I see?
So it for me, it's something that I really had to push myself.
I think it looks great. And any artist is going to be critical of their own work. I mean, for real.
Yeah.
It does look amazing.
Now you ink and color all your own stuff too, obviously.
I do.
The colors on that Scarlet Witch piece are popping.
So that was I really tried to study on that one. It's just red paper. It's a red cardstock that I actually use for my comic book covers. That I had a little piece left over and drew everything. So it's really only 3 colors. It's black, a white gel marker or a white gel pen, and then a gray marker. Get some of those like the curvy dots.
But it's great. It's so defined.
Thank you. Yeah, it's.
Did you do the same thing with your vision?
Yes. So what I actually, and I'll admit, I drew this directly from.
Oh, the cover, the Avengers.
Yeah,
cover.
I had a copy of Marvel Super Action, which was a reprint of the Vision cover. So I just sat here with the comic right next to me, looking at it, trying to draw it. Trying to nail it. And it's funny because, like you said, artists are more critical of their work. There are things I look at and I'm like, his left leg is a little bit skinny at the top. I could have fleshed that out a little bit.
But it's just like it though. I mean, with the exception, like the clouds are, because the focal point of that picture is the Vision. In this one, he's equal. But I love what you did. Like, it looks just like it. And so I'm just totally amazed with it. I really am.
The only one that I'm kicking myself with this that I didn't do. So I make copies of all my artwork before I send it out to people, because I can't tell you how many times I've drawn something, and like anything else, with time you forget what you do, and you move on. So there are pictures out there that I don't remember because I've forgotten to take pictures of, I've forgotten to make copies of. So I made about 4 copies of this Vision, and then painted one. So I had everything set up the exact same, painted one to make it look white, because if on that West Coast Avengers, what is it, 45, I want to say, it's the exact same picture except he's white instead of red. So I went back into the copy and painted it white and worked it over. So it was a white version of the Vision. I don't even know if I posted that on Instagram or not, because it didn't. With that, it was with the paper and the copy. It was so difficult to try and paint. At first, I tried using the gel marker and it just didn't work well. I went back in with paint, and it just warped the paper too much. So I really had to water it down and apply it very thinly, and it just, to me, it didn't look right. And then once I went back in with my markers, my black markers, it on the paint, it just didn't take very well. It looked decent enough that I sold it, but one of those where I was not proud. But now I look back at it and I kick myself, because I'm like, I don't remember what it looks like and how I could have improved on it. Because at the point when I did it, I just thought, I don't want to see this thing again, because it took me probably a good 4 days to finally get it done. And by the end of it, I was so frustrated that I just wanted to move on.
I understand. So like, I've seen pictures that it's that picture. It's a Fantastic Four cover with the Hulk's like rounding the corner. And one picture, it looks like it's just green paint. And then like, so is that how you create? Do you do like the colors first and then go back with a marker or a Sharpie or whatever?
Yeah. So with this one specifically, and I've gotten a lot better with taking pictures of the process, but with this one specifically, because I was actually trying to copy Jack Kirby, which, definitely one of my artistic heroes, because the guy was amazing, and the work that he could produce. But yeah, with this, what I do is I use a photocopy pencil, blue pencil. So it actually, if I were to copy it or even take a picture of it, it doesn't show up very well. Go back in with the colors and then layer on top of that. So I'll start with the lightest color first and then layer all the darks on top of it. Cool. So yeah, this one took me, I want to say probably 2 or 3 hours. So all of these sketch cards generally take me, because I now that I was so scared of color for such a long time, mainly because I didn't really know how to use like Copic alcohol markers, and I just went in and kept drawing and playing with it and making mistakes and figuring out how to really use the colors and how to blend everything to get this this effect. And so now it's tough for me to go back and work black and white because I want the depth that the color gets. And I have to say too, I've been really blessed that my family, my immediate family, my wife and my son, and my parents and my brother, they're all so supportive of me, and constantly are giving me new art supplies to try. So some of these, a lot of the drawings recently is a great set of markers. And I think they're just called master marker that my brother gave me for my birthday. And didn't even tell me. It just showed up on my door. I actually had to put a post out on Instagram to say,
who gave me this?
You know, thank you, and I will definitely, get something to you. But
What's it?
it's Uncle Dave.
Daddy? Nice. Can you see my outfit?
Could we show? My son drew a picture of
Absolutely.
silver. Do you want to see?
Nice.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
So anybody that's interested in his artwork, JB_draws_things on Instagram.
I
So
want to show a picture of yours that I got from you that I think is amazing. So I don't know if you can say anything about it or not, but that is just a fantastic Silver Surfer.
yeah, so that actually, I love the Silver Surfer too. I've always one of those characters that I just, he's really interesting. The different stories that they have, his background, just one of my grails is the first Fantastic Four appearance. I mean, it's
49, right?
At this point, it's unattainable. I'm okay with getting reprints, but I always, what I loved about the Silver Surfer, him riding around on a surfboard, and I'm also a big fan of surf and skate culture. So I'm a huge fan of like Dogtown and Z Boys and that documentary, and even the movie that came along with it. So one of the big things that they always used to say in the documentary, and that they would have spray painted all over in their little surf coves, was locals only. So I was messing around one night and did the Silver Surfer, and I was about to fill in the background and do all the stars and whatnot. And I thought, how cool would it be if it said locals only? So now anytime I've drawn another Silver Surfer that I ended up giving away on Winking's, one of his live shows. That same thing, he's like doing a move and holding on to the bottom of his board, and on the bottom of his board it says locals only. So
it'd be cool, Kevin, is if you did like Silver Surfer with like a president's mask on, like Point Break. That would be so awesome.
Yes. So that's one of the things I've been working on too, is actually getting a likeness down so that I can draw someone and have an audience look at it and say, yes, that is so and so, outside of it being a comic book character. So I started off
the Wink Ink one.
That's right. We have this. I actually did today, based off of Wolverine, the miniseries #1. And he says, time for your review. So that's, I'm getting there, but yeah, one of the first ones I started with was Stan Lee. When he passed away, I had to draw my Stan Lee memorial piece. And if you see me floating around whatnot, that's actually my profile picture, because I think it turned out pretty well. So,
was there an age where, and I always wondered this, was there an age where you realized, like, okay, I can actually draw, where you started to really take it serious? Because I know I drew, growing up, but I never had that artistic where I could just sit down and draw something. I could look at something and draw it, but I never could, like, in my mind just doesn't work that way. But was there an age where you figured out, okay, I actually have some talent here?
Yeah. So, so for me, the way that I got started out, I'm going to kind of back it up a little bit. The way that I got started is I'm the youngest on both sides of my family. And on one side, the next, like my next closest cousin is 5 years older than me. So, you know, when I'm 5 years old and we're at my grandparents' house and I want to play with everyone, well, they're 10 and they don't want a 5-year-old running around, you know, holding them down. So I'd get really bummed, and my grandma would give me index cards and, you know, pieces of paper, and she had a set of colored pencils for me. And I would sit down at her kitchen table and I would draw. So, and it got to be anytime we had a family event, instead of trying to go play with my cousins, I would just sit down and draw the whole time. So, you know, I started to, you know, probably around like 8 or 9 years old, I really, you know, started to think, oh, I want to do this when I grow up. And I even told my grandpa that I wanted to work for Disney, of which he was an engineer, and tried to shoot that down right away, just saying, do you understand the amount of people that want to work for Disney that don't work for Disney? So don't get your hopes up. Get something practical to fall back on, like engineering. But it was, for me, the real turning point was high school. When I was in junior high, I had won a few awards, like national awards, for some of the art projects that I had done. And when I got to high school, I sat down with a guidance counselor, and I think I was probably around mid-year. And the guidance counselor said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to draw comic books when I get older. I enjoy comic books. You know, I like the art. I want to do that. And he said, okay, what are you doing to get there? I said, well, you know, I have an art class. He said, well, why don't you take 2 art classes? Why don't you take, you know, as many art classes as you can? And when you take an art class, what kind of grades do you get in it? And I said, I don't know, like B's and C's. And he said, you want to be an artist, you've got to get A's. So I said, yeah. And it was, for me, it was like a real kick in the pants that all of a sudden I just, you know, I don't think I got anything less than an A in an art class, in like a drawing or painting class, from that point forward. So that was really the point. And then when I was in college, that was really the next standpoint. I had a professor that, she was a professional artist, and we would go to her openings, and she was fantastic, just a fantastic motivator. And, you know, she always stood behind us, and everything we did was really, you know, in her eyes was excellent. And I remember we would sit down before we would have to do a project. We would sit down, we would talk to her about it. And I had a specific vision in my head of wanting to do the room that we were in had 4 8x4 blackboards lined up all on one wall. And I had a vision that I wanted to do, and in that entire thing is a mural, but have part of the whole process be that people come up and erase it, because it's chalk and it's, you know, a temporary thing. So I spent probably a good 13 to 14 hours on this mural over the course of a night. And I stepped back and I remember specifically looking at this thing, and it matched the picture in my head. And that was really the first time that I was just blown away. It's not very often that I get blown away by my own art. Just because I don't want to be that guy that looks at it and says, I'm the best artist ever. Because that's just
when you fully realize something you had in your head, it's got to feel great.
Yes. And that was the amazing thing. You know, I was exhausted. It was probably around 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, it was at the point where the professors are now starting to come back into the building, and I'm just getting ready to leave. And I was absolutely dumbfounded. Like I said, it was the first time that the picture in my head matched the picture on the board, and I was completely satisfied. You know, I didn't think that there was anything else that I needed to do to this thing make it better. So, and it's funny because now that picture in my head has changed. And if I were to go back and do it again,
It'd be different, huh?
yeah, it would be a lot different. So
now, I want you to talk about the character you created, Mystery Man.
yes.
And how you came up with him. He's a great mascot. He's got his own individual look, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So Mystery Man, it's kind of a funny story. I was in art school, and you have to take all kinds of different classes in order to meet your requirements. So I was taking a ceramics class, and I absolutely hate ceramics. It's not that I don't like ceramics as a form of art, because I do. There are people out there that are fantastic at it. I am horrible at it. I am god awful. No matter what I did, I just wasn't good.
Are you the kind of person that just goes into like a pottery barn and starts throwing stuff on the floor?
I appreciate, the work that people do. I know I can't do it. So like currently my wife, she wanted to do a pottery class. So for her birthday, I signed her up for a pottery class. And that was one of the things. She's like, do you want to do it with me? And I said, I love you. No, because it's not going to turn out well for me. But so one of the things we had to do in the class was keep a sketchbook. And every week the teacher would check our sketchbook. And it was part of our grade, because we couldn't have homework per se. So I was working on a project, and I was really frustrated with it. And she had just finished looking at my sketchbook, and she said, "Listen, you're really good graphically, but you're not so good at building things. So why don't you try like making a tile, and then make a drawing and layer this off of, your drawing." So I didn't know what to do. And we always used to make fun because she was a working artist as well. She used to go to craft fairs and street fairs and sell her work. And she used the wheel. So she would spin, and she always had this bucket of water, down by her legs that she would reach down and put her fingers in so she could wet the clay. So I was trying to come up with something to draw, and I would constantly make fun of her about a bucket of muck. So I drew just this little character, made fun of it, and it ended up over time turning into my Mystery Man. But we called him, at that point I called him Muck Man, and he looked very similar. He was real boxy. And his logo on the front of his chest was just a bucket with like a ring going around it, trying to be like, planetary. So over time, I'm a huge Mike Allred fan. I love Madman. So I wanted to figure out some way that I could try and incorporate the lightning bolt, because I'm a big fan of lightning bolts too. But I didn't want to just overtly rip it off. So stylized a question mark. And that's been his look ever since. And over time, he's gone from a real square, boxy character to more of a fluid character. The comic that I just showed now is a ripoff of The Dark Knight #2.
Yes.
Where it's Batman all crouched up and he's all beaten up, and I love that comic book. So I've drawn a few characters in that style, but I drew my character. I was actually at a wedding, and the couple that was getting married, instead of having your traditional, sign-in book where you sign and wish them well, they had a world atlas, and you were supposed to write in the atlas. So over the course of the night, because I really don't drink, as everybody's drinking and dancing and having fun, I'm out in the hallway drawing in like every 10th page of this dictionary sized book, to where I think in the end, I counted like 36 drawings that I did over the course of the night.
Wow.
just little ones. And one of them was I had just drawn the Batman that way, and I ended up drawing Mystery Man in that little box. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So, and actually, to prove a point, so here's my thing. I did the thing in the same way, kind of based off of like Ed Pisker's Grand Design, or not Grand Design. Yeah, he did a variant cover for Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I love the detail on the pieces of rock. Like, that's what sells it to me. I mean, not anyone, a lot of people can draw the thing, but to put that much emphasis and detail on the individual pieces, it just blew my mind. I was like, holy crap, man. Like, and so you said it takes about 2 to 3 hours to do a picture like that?
Sometimes, yeah. So, for instance, here's
I love that one too.
So, something like this is going to take about, even though it's small, because even though it's a copy, this is the same size as my cards. It's going to take about 2 to 3 hours, just because when I go in and I layer in all the colors, because they are alcohol markers, it soaks into the paper, and it takes a little bit of time to dry. So I do have to work a little bit slower. Something like this, I hate to say it, this only took about 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
And we have family art night, where my son will sit down and he'll draw. I'll grab, that was actually on a comic backer board. And I'll just grab that and just kind of draw whatever I feel like. I don't even sketch anything out. I just draw with the pen. So yeah, that one only took about 20 minutes. And I think the bulk of it was shading in all the orange and then just going in and putting in the dots of brown and white. And, but yeah, I have a blank comic book cover here that I can't show. Blank comic book covers, those generally take about 2 to 3 days. Just because I am really neurotic about screwing up the comic, and then, I've got something that I can't use. So I go really slow on that. I go at a snail's pace just to make sure that it's going to turn out the way I want it to. And, whoever has bought this is going to be happy with it.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Now, you said you have copies of most of your work. Have
Yes.
you ever thought about putting out your own art portfolio book for people to buy?
So yeah, that's actually why I started doing copies. I had a friend that passed away just before COVID hit, and after these free comic book days, I would go into work and I would show him all the pictures, and he would always say, "Why don't you, print those out, get everything in a comic, and put out a comic with just these works?" And for a long time I was like, no, because they're pictures from my phone. I can't really. But once he passed away, there were a few conversations that we had over time that really kind of started to ring in my head, and I'm like, you know what, I've got to do this. I really have to. So that's when I started making copies. And I mean, I've got just to kind of give you a picture of what I have. I know it doesn't look like a lot as I'm showing it on the video, but there are probably 50 drawings here.
Trust me, it's a lot.
It is. It is. There's a lot here. There are some that are doubles, but usually too, when for the most part, when somebody commissions me to draw something, they'll say, hey, I really love this Wolverine that you did. Can you draw, can you do the exact same picture? And I always say, I can't do the exact same one, but I'll do something. So you see a lot of like Spider-Mans that are like this, but it's slightly different. The background is different, the coloring is different. He might have both hands on his webs instead of, shooting one. A lot of times for quick sketches for Free Comic Book Day, you will see a lot of these Spider-Mans. So like something like this, I won't put in a book like that just because I do want people to feel special when they walk away with a piece of art. But Free Comic Book Day, when you've got a line of 15 to 20 people waiting and it takes 10 minutes to do a drawing, that's not the time to get real intricate, and you have your set pictures and it's just nail it out real quick. So
do you just draw anything that anyone asks you to draw?
I do.
What's the weirdest thing that you've ever had to draw?
Well, I was getting ready to ask him if he could draw me like a Metallica homage cover, or like a sketch of Metallica or something.
You want to be James Hetfield?
Yes,
could do that. So some of the weirdest things, there are two that always stick out in my mind when I'm asked. The first one, it's funny. So I was an athlete in college. I played football, and it's funny because the art world and the athletics world is so distant at times. So I'm sitting at Free Comic Book Day, and this girl walks up to the table and she says, "Can you draw?" She was actually looking at the person who was sitting next to me, the artist next to me, and she says, "Can you draw Jordy Nelson?" And he looked at her like, she was speaking a completely different language. And I looked at her and said, "You mean keep in mind, this was probably about 6-7 years ago. I said, "You mean the Green Bay Packers wide receiver?" And she says, "Yes, yes." And he looks at me and goes, "Man, this is all yours." So I had to draw a picture of Jordy Nelson, which I live in the Chicago suburbs. So for me to have to draw a Packer as a Bears fan,
yeah, that's tough.
It's rough. And then right after Avengers Infinity War came out, I had a kid that came in and he said, "I want you to draw Stan Lee." And I'm like, "Perfect, I can draw Stan Lee." "I want you to draw Stan Lee wearing the Infinity Gauntlet." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can do that." "I want you to draw him snapping the Infinity Gauntlet."
Sweet Jesus.
And I'm like, I know where this is going. And then he says, "And I want him to be dissolving too." And at first I'm like, "No, man, I can't," because Stan Lee had just passed away. So I'm like, I'm not going to draw that. And he's like, "Come on." And he was probably 12. So I finally said, "All right, I'll draw it." So that was probably the weirdest one, because I drew it and he's snapping the Infinity Gauntlet, and he wanted the comic Infinity Gauntlet instead of the movie Infinity Gauntlet. But I drew him snapping the Infinity Gauntlet and saying "Excelsior" as he's pixelating into the other end of the page. So
I think Stan would feel honored by it.
Yeah. So, and there's one book. So I am a part of a group. It all started off doing 24-hour comic book day, or the 24-hour comic book challenge, that's what this book is. You have 24 hours to draw a 24-page comic book. And I have never done it. I've gone 24 hours. And I think when I went 24 hours, the one time I went 24 hours, I did 15 pages. The closest I got was 19 pages. And at the end of it, my hand was so cramped I couldn't even hold the pencil. As I'm starting to draw a new page, it's literally just falling out of my fingers. But our 24-hour comics group does a Hero Initiative charity book.
That's awesome.
So this year we're putting out 2 for C2E2. So it'll be volume 4 and volume 5. But in volume 2, in the story that I drew, I put Stan Lee down in the corner because he had passed away, and the guy that really put together our group and organized the comic he's diabetic, and he has a funny Stan Lee story he was at Wizard World in Chicago. He was trying to go get a slice of pizza, and he ended up getting trampled by Stan Lee's entourage. And in turn was delayed going to get a piece of pizza. And as he got up to get a piece, the person before him had bought the last piece. So he always jokes that Stan Lee owes him a piece of pizza. So when Stan Lee passed away, we were working on the second volume, and I put in the bottom corner just a little picture of Stan Lee saying, "Anybody want to get a pizza?" So that's been kind of the moniker. I hide Stan Lee somewhere in the book when I do a page. So so this year I'm actually working on, we have a heroes section, but then the book that I'm working on is based off of the old DC Comics Wanted comic books, where it just focused on the villains. And it's focusing on my main villain, Devilman. So I'm trying to figure out, that's one of the things I'm currently working on. I'm trying to figure out where to stick Stan Lee in there so that he makes his little cameo.
Do you currently read comics? Oh, sorry, Gary.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, do you currently read comics?
I do. My read pile is very large at this point because I don't read them as quickly as I used to. But I focus on, for me, it's all artist based. But there are a few titles that I'll go and pick up, just for instance, the Batman Adventures Continue series, both the season 1 and now the season 2, because I loved that I absolutely loved that television show growing up. I love the comic series growing up. And so when it came back, I wanted to make sure that I got that. So that's one that I do regularly pick up. But most of the stuff I listen to a lot of shows. I participate in a lot of auctions. So I've picked up on like Something's Killing the Children. But of course it was like issue 12 by the time I got into it. I missed the first 11 issues. But what I've read is really good. I like it.
I just buy that in trades now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the big things I've been doing with the newer comics. So I am a collector. Actually, if I take this down, I've got all they're short boxes, but I've got about 25 short boxes behind me. What I do, I have 7 half-price books within like a 45-minute radius of me.
Wow.
So I constantly hit the half-price books because they just don't know what they have at times. So
I don't have any of those near me. I keep hearing everybody talk about them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I have 2 comics that I picked up for ridiculous prices that I got really lucky. DC Comics presents number 26, the first Teen Titans, the first new Teen Titans. I got that for $20, and it is a really gorgeous copy. There was no reason that it shouldn't have been, $100 book. But my greatest find at half price books was Marvel, the first Kamala Khan story. Marvel
.1?
All new Marvel Now #1. It's close to a 9.8 candidate, and I picked it up for $2.50.
Wow.
Nice.
So then that was like a month ago.
Yeah, and it was pricey a month ago. It's pricier now.
Yeah, they were having a really big blowout sale. Each of the half price books had a different thing that they were focusing on. So one store would be movies, and there was another store that would be comic books. And the store, which is about 5 minutes away from me, was the comic book store. So I got my son in the car that day, and I said, all right, we're going to half price books. And we were there about 10 minutes early, so we waited, and he's bored and, kind of yelling at me like, why are we doing this? And as we're walking out, and I've got this book in my hand because I was the first one to be able to go through all the boxes, I look at him, I'm like, this is why we're doing this.
You'll understand one day.
That's right. That's right.
So you have like the big two, right? And you always have like, they had the amalgamation, and then back in the day, you had Spider-Man and Superman. You had Teen Titans and X-Men. You had all these groups. Have you ever, like, for your own fun and amusement, did like Mystery Man against Spider-Man, Mystery Man against Superman, and drawn like the battle?
So I haven't done that yet, as far as like a big character. But one of the things that I'm actually working on, I'm finishing up, and I'm hoping that it's going to be released before C2E2 in December, is Oh Yeah Comics. Their main hero is Action Cat. So it's Action Cat meets Mystery Man.
Oh, nice.
So
and where can people buy that when it's done?
So you'll be able to buy it at ohyeahcomics.com. And then it's like I said, I'm friends with Art Baltazar. That's his comic, and he was the one that said, I want you to do this, and you can draw Action Cat, all this. So so it'll be available on his website too, which is Electric Milk. I think it's Electric Milk Creations. Man, if you would have asked me like 2 hours ago, I would have known it off the top of my head. But
getting old is rough, dude.
It'll be available in his store as well. And then I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of copies of it, and I'll throw it up either on my Store Envy store or put it in my Pop Shop Live store.
Now, what's one of your ultimate goals as an artist? Do you want to be on a monthly book, like getting in with a Source Point Press or something like that, and working on something with an indie company? Or are you still shooting for the big two, or you got a whole different direction you want to head in now?
Yeah, so I think, for me, the goal is I would love to be able to quit my day job and do this full time. And realistically, some of the stuff that the small presses are putting out, I think are eclipsing the big two. So I would love to be able to get a monthly book and be able to draw that. If it works out that I ever get to work for DC or Marvel or Image, that'd be awesome. I would not pass up that opportunity, but I'm realistic too. I know that my artwork is not necessarily their cup of tea. So
I don't know. You have a style that's distinct, just like Scotty Young has a style that's distinct.
Yeah.
Hey, what if you were, you could just be doing covers, and who knows? I mean, there's not anything you couldn't do with your art style. It's very distinctive. It'll fit stories that are out there to be told.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, what, too, I'll be honest. That's one of the positive things that has happened to me within the past 10 years is seeing the rise of Scotty Young and his variant covers. As a collector, I always think it's funny because you look at his books and they're not as valuable as some of the other books. But to me, some of the things that he does, his line work is absolutely amazing. So seeing that, he was on as many books as he was, seeing some of his other side projects that he's done. I hate Fairyland. I think it's a great story. It's funny. It's violent. It's cute. I hate to say that about artwork, but it is. It has a certain cuteness to it, but still is, violent. But yeah. To see some of the covers, I can't tell you how many times I've picked up a Marvel book that he's done, and I'll read the book and I'll go, yeah, I really wish that the artwork on the cover was on the inside, because that might have made it more interesting. So I was a big fan when they put him on Rocket Raccoon, to finally see that he was getting to do a story in his style. So, but he was a huge influence to be able to look at it and say, there's a guy that does a cartoony style, and he's mainstream, man. Everybody knows who Scotty is.
And somebody probably told him the same thing that you got told.
Yeah. So that's
and he's a decent writer too. Strange Academy is a lot of fun.
He is, and I've met him a couple of times just at shows, waiting in line for 2 hours to get to his table. He's a super nice guy. I will say that's, he will give, if he's at his table, he will give you as much time as you need. He's not trying to rush you through like other artists have. And for budding artists, that's what I like to see, because that you connect with the people that way, and
it's genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's the one thing that I took away from him, is he was genuinely happy that you were buying his work. Even I just picked up one of his little sketchbooks that he puts out. That's a mini comic. And just even with that, he was so appreciative that I was spending my money to buy, his 48 pages of work. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't I do this? This is amazing work. But, not their cup of tea.
Do you have any idea what the process is to actually be selected to be on a monthly title? Like, how do you get discovered? I just wondered if you knew how that even works.
Yeah. So, it was great back in the late 90s, early 2000s, because some of these companies like Oni, Devil's Due, when it was in its infancy, a lot of these indie titles would let you submit, and for an artist, you would have to submit 7 pages of sequential artwork. If you were a writer, you would have to submit at first a story arc. If you moved into the next step, then you would need to submit at least 2 full issues, scripted issues. And then if you were a artist writer combo, you would have to submit, when the writer submitted the 2 issues, you would have to submit at least 1 issue of completed work with thumbnails for a second issue. It's a little bit different now, just the way that some of these companies are. To be honest, I don't think that you need to be in one of the big companies. With the way that Kickstarter is, just even self-publishing, there are so many more available options to artists and writers to publish their own work and not have to, spend. I mean, looking at Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, to spend
Mirage Comics,
a ton of money to get, 1,200 issues for the first run, I think it was, or 3,000. I know it wasn't much more than that. But you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get, these huge, for an independent artist like that, 3,000 comics is a huge run.
Right.
One of my friends that, he's actually taken a step back and he's gotten out of the art world. He did a 4-issue series. And the artwork was amazing. He was really trying to make a big push. And again, he was one of those guys that he sat down and got the portfolio review and he was told that he was not going to work. So he did it himself. He put out 4 issues. He put out 3 issues and finished it up with a 4th to finish up the story. But I mean, he put it out himself and sold out of, I think the first issue, he ended up having to do 3 printings. but he did it himself. So
Nice.
there are ways that you can get noticed. Obviously, if you put out your own book and it is selling, companies are going to notice you and they're going to approach you. And that's right now, that's really the main way that most companies are going to, you're going to get onto even independent company is they have to approach you. They're not going to take any unsolicited submissions. But yeah, I'm a big fan of DIY. So, I mean, you can see, with this book here, it's a piece of cardstock, and I have gone out and bought a printer. And I even have let's see if I can get it up here. I've got a saddle stapler, so I can staple my books. And, when it's convention season, I'm down in my studio and I'm printing up 50 to 100 copies of books to take with me and hope that I sell a quarter of them. So
now a completed submission, like you were talking about as an artist, that's not inks and colors. That's just layouts, right?
Yeah. So for an artist, because obviously there's pencilers, inkers, letterers. So if you want to be an artist, when you do a submission, the majority of companies are going to say they want the layout, so just the pencils. And I know you can look at like DC and Marvel. They've put out like some of these director cuts of books where they will have like the specifically.
Like Mortal Hulk just had one for 6 issues they had last year.
Which one?
Immortal Hulk had the director's cut for 6
Yeah.
issues.
One of them that I was thinking of was the John Romita run on Superman a few years ago. They put out a director's cut, and in that director's cut, it had his pencils. Because at this point, John Romita does so much that he'll only do the pencils and somebody else will do the inking. So that's what they'll want to see are the rough pencils. And you do, as an artist, you do tend to shade in to if somebody else is inking your work so that they know how to ink, what parts you want, solid black and what parts you want, worked otherwise.
Like crosshatch or whatever.
Yeah. So artists will set that up for the inkers. But so when you do a submission, that's what they're going to want to see. There are a few companies that will want to see full completed work, inked, lettered, which let me tell you, lettering is its own art form in itself.
Yeah, yours is incredible.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about that, but I didn't want to jump in. But yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. You're not just writing.
It's own art form.
Yeah, you really have to draw each letter. As silly as that sounds. Here, I'll show you a difference. So this is a
Superman peeing on the Avengers.
Yeah, this is a panel that somebody had Superman peeing on the Avengers, and I took it. I knew exactly what they wanted, but I didn't want to be crude about it, just because. But you can kind of see here. So that's just my standard writing style. And it's not much different than my day-to-day writing style. I was not liked in high school because I wrote so small. And you can kind of see there too. That is how I'm going to actually letter most of my comics now. And like I said, it's you draw each letter. So I'll write it out ahead of time. And then as I ink, that'll be the first thing that I ink to make sure that, I can pick up any mistakes that I do, but I'm not drawing the picture and then trying to squeeze the word bubble into a tiny space. I've got enough space for the word bubble. I've got enough space for the letters, and then I draw everything else around that. So,
now, is there any Kevin Bixby Indiegogos or Kickstarters coming?
Not right now. because I'm doing this Hero Initiative story, which is a 5-page story. I'm finishing up the story for Action Cat. And then before Gary, I know you've actually purchased the Holozines.
Yes,
that I do with the
purchased
Northside.
2 of them.
We just got the contracts for this year's Holozine. So I'm going to be doing at least another 4-page story for that.
Nice.
So doing all of this and then any other commission work that I get on top of that. So with all of this, it means I have less time for my own comics. But I have some stuff that I've already started working on. And it's just a decision whether it's going to be a mini comic or a full-size comic. If it's full-size, I'll probably do like an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter.
Now, what's your favorite genre to draw? Because I've seen you do horror, and now I've seen you do heroes.
Yeah.
Or that you want to draw that you haven't drawn yet.
Yeah, horror is fun. I enjoy drawing that just because I can really get a little crazy with it. Not like gory, sick, really demented crazy, but
creative.
Yeah, I can have fun with it and do things that I normally wouldn't do. Ultimately I love drawing humor, just offbeat, quirky humor. If you read my actual comics, I'm a child of the 90s, so I speak fluent sarcasm. So it's a lot of my comics have that just kind of sarcasm, and I like to think it's wit, but so that humor is my favorite. It's tough though to say which one I don't want to. I tell you, I don't want to draw like a drama book, something where I've got to be real strict and really conform to a certain style.
Yeah, time periods are tough, I hear from most artists.
Yeah. So, and actually, the friend that I was telling you about that did the 4-issue miniseries, he did an underwater book.
Ooh.
And where he said it was really fun at the same time as he was drawing it. He said it was one of the most frustrating things because you're constantly having to draw all the air bubbles, all the plants, all the coral and rock underground, and then even just fish in the background. So he said where it was a great idea, when he first started, he doesn't think that he would do that again just because he doesn't want to have to do it. And I want to point out, you just put a comment up, John Schaefer, that's Doc. So Doc is the guy that brought us all together. He's the cheese for the pizza. He's the glue for the binding. He's what got us all together for our 24-hour comic book. And I mean, without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. So thanks, Doc.
Oh, nice. All right, so I got one final question, and we'll start wrapping up. We've got an hour and 10 minutes, but I was saving this for the last. How did you and Alex from Wing King hook up?
So, it just started as when it had to have been late 2019, early 2020. I was watching unboxing videos and primarily like Loot Crate and Bambox unboxing videos, and then started to move into some of the comic videos and just happened across his videos. So I started, I think I subscribed to him when he was still under 1,000 subs. The energy that he had, I was drawn to it, as a lot of people I think will say. but I was I had a blank comic book. I saw him opening up different things from people, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna send him a comic because, and I actually think I sent him one of my cards first, one of my sketch cards first. But I sent him a blank comic, and he just went nuts over it and commenting on his videos, and then he reached out to me over Instagram, and we started talking on Instagram, and that's pretty much how it happened. And
I still remember the Fantastic Four cover you did for his giveaway.
yes, yeah, that was
a front and back.
Yeah, it was a gatefold. So I always have to, when I do one of those for him, I always have to put something like a sticky note on the bag to say, hey, make sure to check the back, because otherwise he doesn't check it. And I usually try and put some on some of his books. I put some jokes on the back.
Oh, nice.
So
Winkie Pie.
That's right, Winky. He actually has 2 books that he's opening up on the season finale this Sunday. So, but yeah, we just in talking to him about his content and then about my content, we got to be friends. So pretty lucky. He's a pretty spectacular guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember he gave me some shout outs when, and it's not like you have to give him anything for him to shout you out. If he sees you out there, he'll give you a shout.
Yeah.
No, yeah, he's awesome, man. I mean, he came on 10 Questions. I had a great time talking to him. I mean, like, he's just such a good dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when you watch his regular weekly videos, he has that wrestling persona, and he almost tries to play the heel where he's in your face and he's angry, but then you see him kind of get to be himself and relax and go through his unboxing. But yeah, I mean, in real life, he's just let me tell you, he's got a heart that you just can't measure, because he's extremely generous. And I know there have been plenty of times that he's told me, he's tried to give me advice on certain things, and has said, if there's anything I can do, let me know. So it's let me tell you, it's the community that we're in. It's amazing. And it's why, I sell a decent amount of drawings, but I love to give drawings away too. Just even if it's on, like Gary, you showed the
Silver
Surfer. That's just an index card,
Yeah, but it's sweet. It
still looks awesome though.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things, and that's what I want to do. I said earlier, I want to make the world a pretty place, and ultimately that's what I want to do. I don't want it to feel like original art is unattainable. I don't want it to feel like, people can't reach out to artists, just to even ask them to draw, a silly character or whatever, like, draw the Avengers getting peed on by Superman. It's I don't know. I know you've got the Grow Together initiative going on, and I think that's a great thing. It is promoting us. It's if one person is going to do thing, man, let's have everybody do it. And that's what I want to do too. I want to make sure that, everybody can have a little piece of joy, even if it's, 10 seconds that they're looking at it going, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. And then they never look at it again.
Now we can't leave without you letting people know what you have available for your services, whether it's index card drawings, whether it's bigger drawings, or custom or commission covers on comic books and blank. So give yourself a little plug here.
Sure.
And can you talk about some prices too? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So index or sketch card, I call these sketch cards, but it's comic board roughly about 4x5, 5.5. Those are usually going to be about, depending on how complex you want it to be. I do full color sketches for you. Those are anywhere from $10 to $15. That's it.
Sweet Jesus, man.
Uh,
You should double your prices.
Everybody says that, but like I said, I don't want to scare people away.
You need to wait until I get my order in here, so then you can double.
Yeah, charge Kenny the extra.
Yeah, and you're gonna do all of Jimmy's Christmas cards, so you're gonna have a hefty order coming
Yeah.
in.
So then I've got blank comic book covers. These are $50. The big reason for that is because it kills markers. It really does. So I at least have to put some. I have to put something in there so that I can cover marker cost. Because if you've ever had to go out and buy a Copic marker, those are like $7-8 a marker. And then, varying sizes. I do other things like watercolor, which I will fully admit, it's still a work in progress. I'm trying to grab a copy of one right now. It's still a work in progress.
Oh, I love it. It's like Biggie.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, though.
With this stuff, a lot of times prices, you just have to ask, and I'll try and work with you as well. Index cards usually are about $5 to $10. Those I will do like black and white and gray. And anything else, the more complex you get, let's talk. I'm always available, and it might take me a hot second for me to get back to you, but I'll always be very apologetic, and I will get back to you.
For any of you that watch this now or on the rewind, his Instagram is down below. The link is in the description. Just click on it. Go follow Kevin Bixby. Reach out to him. Get some great art done. You won't be sorry.
So, and you never know. You could always get Superman getting run by Flash.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
So yeah, and I with COVID,
every time you show Superman, you're making a sale with Jimmy.
Yep. But no, I'm legit going to see if he can do something Metallica for me.
I probably could. So I completely forgot what I was just going to say. But yeah, it's, just reach out to me on Instagram. I'm always available, and I post stuff as I'm working on some of my other projects and trying to get those done, meet deadlines so that Doc doesn't come to my house and try and murder me. It has slowed down a little bit, but it doesn't mean that I'm not drawing. I've always got a little sketchbook or something scratch paper close to me. So
I got to tell you, I'm super excited for Domino. As soon as you told me you had a blank Domino, I was all about it.
Yeah, it was. I have never drawn Domino either, so I know I've been working on some sketches just to try and work out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to model her. But it's been pretty fun.
And if people have blank covers at home, they can mail those to you to get worked on, correct?
Yes, and I will tell you that if you do that, it is going to be a cheaper price, just because I am also accounting for the fact that I had to buy a blank comic, and it 2-3 years ago was nice because comic stores, when they would have extra blank comic covers, would put them in the $1 bin or the 50-cent bin, and I'd be able to get them for a steal.
COVID messed that up.
Yeah. And now, some of these blank covers are starting to actually become a little bit more expensive. So, but yeah, if you send in a book, in fact, I don't know if she's in the chat because I haven't seen it, but 6 and 6 Collectibles.
Oh, man.
Amanda sent me an X-Men book that she had. And that's another one I've gotten my cue to work on and get back to her. So
I did have one last question. I was just wondering what position you played in college.
I was the left tackle,
Nice.
offensive tackle. So I was the blind side.
Nice.
So, because I'm, anytime I do a YouTube show or something, you always see me sitting down. But I'm 6'5".
Not bragging or anything.
That's right, lineman size person. So, my son, which you saw him earlier, he's 5, and he is 4 feet already. So they are. Everything we've heard up to this point, he's going to be like 6'8", 6'9".
Wow.
So I've
Andre the Giant.
Yeah. So right now he's in soccer, and I keep saying, hey man, because when he plays soccer, he doesn't go for the ball, he goes for the person, and he just knocks people over. So I keep saying, hey, are you sure you want to play soccer? You don't want to throw some pads on, maybe go play some football?
You can hit all the people you want in football.
That's right. You'd be a great linebacker until he gets to be 6'8", 6'9". Then they're going to want him on the line.
Kenny, any last question?
No, I really enjoy your art. It's amazing. When I first saw your page, like on Instagram, I immediately started thinking of Marvel superheroes, like Adventure. I think it's the cartoon line. Like my kids watch that.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that, and my kids aren't. Well, like my son isn't old enough to read. He is learning to read right now, and so comic books aren't his thing. But he plays with like the Imaginext toys all the time. And so I showed him the art, and I'm like, check out this guy. I'm going to be talking to him. And he's like, that's really awesome. So I don't have any questions. I could just talk art and throw more compliments your way for another hour. So it really has been awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
How we end this, Kevin, is we'll start at the top. Jimmy will say his goodbye. Then we'll do Kenny. I'll say goodnight. And then we always let our guests sign us off.
All right.
Jimmy?
Until next time.
Kenny?
See you around.
As always, keep it casual. Bixby, take us out.
That's it for this one. Until the next time.